the medical model wants to fix you and saying like this is wrong
Mm.
about you. Whereas the social model was one more of acceptance, and you should be proud to be a disabled person and that you have more value than just to make non-disabled people feel better about their
Mm.
lives. You have more to give than just that.
This is A Joyful Rebellion, the podcast that explores that moment you realize the life and success you worked so hard to create didn't come with all the fulfillment you thought it would. I'm your host, James Walters, and I want you to be the author of your own story. Each week, I connect with people who inspire bold answers to the question, what do I do now to create a life I love? If you're ready to start answering that question for yourself, you're in the right place. So let's start a joyful rebellion. Sometimes stories stop you, not because of what happened, but because of how someone chooses to live through it. Jennifer Gasner is a disability advocate and author of the book, My Unexpected Life, Finding Balance Beyond My Diagnosis. At 17, Jennifer was diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia, and since then, she's turned challenge into purpose through humor, grit, and visibility. We talk about rejecting low expectations, finding pride through the social model of disability, and the surprising friendship that shaped her journey, including a powerful moment with Dave Matthews. Whether you're navigating disability or just want to show up better for others, this episode is a reminder that value isn't tied to ability. It's about being fully human. Jennifer Gasner, thank you for being here on this Joyful Rebellion today.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to talk with you because you've written a new book. It's called My Unexpected Life, Finding Balance Beyond My Diagnosis. And one of the things we talk about here on this podcast a lot is getting more life out of life and mindset, and also about it's not your circumstances that define you. It's how you work with or work through your circumstances. And you're a great person to talk with about that. I want to talk about your book, what led up to you writing your book, and also what has been the response of the people who've read your book and who have really benefited from it. But first, tell us a little bit about where things began, because from reading over your information, your childhood was pretty normal. And then the record scratched at around age 17, and you got some news that made you have to really rethink what was happening next. So set the stage for us.
So I grew up in Wisconsin, and as you said, my childhood was relatively normal. Sort of the fact that I was very accident prone.
Okay.
And finally, one day, just randomly, I fell walking to my car. I was about almost 16, and I told my mom, something's going on. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to walk straight, and my handwriting was also declining.
Mm.
And I didn't really understand what was going on. So that led to an appointment with the pediatrician, who then sent me to a local neurologist. And that appointment didn't really tell us anything. So we got a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got the diagnosis of Friedreich's ataxia. At first, I heard it and was like, okay, I really don't know what that is. It might be something that I have to deal with occasionally. It's just going to be a hassle
Mm-hmm.
part of my life. But 2 weeks later, I was watching the Labor Day telethon. This was in 1990, and I saw somebody who had Friedrich's in a wheelchair and realized, oh my gosh, my life is gonna be not anything like I expected.
Mm.
So I had to learn to accept that, really.
What was that like? You were a teenager at that point and you were being given some really life-changing news at an age where you're looking forward to so many things. When you saw that on television and came to the realization, what was one of the first things that came to mind when you realized you had to start working on acceptance?
It definitely took a couple of years. I didn't deal too well with it,
Understandable.
but my neurologist gave me some really good advice when I saw him maybe 3 or 4 months after the diagnosis. He told me, like, I shouldn't let this interrupt my plans for the future. So I just carried on,
Hmm.
really, and continued to go to college and try to pursue the things that I was really passionate about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, during that whole process, my speech, obviously, it's affected now. So my initial dream was to be a radio or TV broadcaster, and clear speech wasn't really conducive to that career. So I had to switch majors.
So you were kind of dealing in real time. Now, I had not heard of this particular diagnosis.
Friedrich's ataxia. Yeah.
Yes. When they told you that's what your diagnosis was, did they kind of start explaining what would be happening in the future? Describe for us what that is. Does it attack the nervous system?
No one really explained it to me because we lived about 90 minutes away from the doctor that gave me the diagnosis. And he actually phoned my mother and talked to her about it. I mean, obviously, I was 17, so that was the protocol. And
Mm,
so all he had told her was that it was part of muscular dystrophy, which is why I was watching the Labor Day telethon. Beyond that,
okay.
I really didn't know anything. So once my mom and I saw the man in the wheelchair who had Friedrich's, she looked up Friedrich's in a medical dictionary, and there was very little on that, maybe 3 pages.
Mm.
And it was not the best thing to read for sure, because it said that I would die by the time I was 25, that I would use a wheelchair by the time I was 20, so on and so forth. It didn't paint a good picture at all.
So when you both started reading that, the level of concern probably went through the roof because before it sounds like you were told to just carry on doing what you were doing, keep going with your plans. Then when you read that in the medical dictionary, it all became much more real.
Yeah.
And it sounds also like, though, I get the sense that you're not 25 and you,
No, I'm
I think
not.
we're the same age, actually. If you were 16 in 1990, then we're the same age. So,
Yeah, I'm 51 now.
which is slightly over 25. So, parts of that book were not going to come true, but you didn't know that
No.
at the time. So, how did you start living differently after that day that you read that and thought maybe you knew what your sentence was, so to speak?
Well, I think my doctor's advice had a lot to do with it, for sure. And there's also a complication with patients with Friedreich's that involves the heart. And I have yet to really have those complications.
Mm.
So that basically led me to believe, well, I think I'll be okay.
Okay.
And again, it took probably for me to reach my 25th birthday for me to finally go, I'm okay. Not gonna happen like they said it would.
And how did that feel when you celebrated 25 and then you celebrated 26?
It was pretty amazing. They were both really great birthdays.
I don't know this for sure, and we'll back into this a little bit, but in writing the book, you wrote it a little bit for yourself, for other people, because a lot of authors are thinking about a specific person that they are writing that book, that they're talking to throughout the process. Who is that for you?
I really wrote the book because I know Friedrich's was so rare. And of course, it was the 90s. We didn't have the internet. Social media didn't exist. So I knew nobody else who had the disease. And I remember thinking, like, if I would have had something like this to read when I was going through it, I would have felt so alone. And
Oh,
that's really why I wanted to write the book, was because I just wanted people to know they weren't alone. And I talk about some things that are not comfortable to talk about. So I want to make people feel a little more at ease for some of those subjects.
because if you are really wanting to help people realize what they're into, I guess, or if something applies to them or a loved one, kind of giving them some insight on where you've been is really helpful. How did you start to organize the book? It's a memoir. So where does it start?
It starts when I'm in the hospital waiting some tests. So I'm like 16, trying to figure out what's going on. And structuring the memoir was a difficult thing for me to do. I struggled with structure for a long, long time. Originally, I wanted the book to start at age 5 and go until I moved from Wisconsin to California in 2001. That was way too long. So
Yeah.
I just condensed it from 16 till about a year before I moved here. So 2000.
Okay. And it's about that journey from the testing, the diagnosis. What was happening with you right around 2000, 10 years into it?
I had started work within the disability community for the first time. It was close to the first time I really embraced my identity as a disabled woman. And it really was the first time I was introduced to this social model of disability, which is different from the medical
Mm.
model. Like the medical model wants to fix you and saying like, this is wrong
Mm.
about you. We need to correct this. Whereas the social model was one more of acceptance and saying that you're fine the way you are and you should be proud to be a disabled person and that you have more value than just the inspirational idea of like your purpose is just to make non-disabled people feel better about their
Mm.
lives. You have more to give than just that.
That's powerful because you can either make the choice to do that or not, right? And you
Yes.
chose to do that. You chose to create a way for people to access your story many, many, many years into the future. And there's no
Yeah.
limit to how many people can access it because it's out there for people to get if they want. And I'm looking on another screen right beside me. I've got your website up. It's got the book. It's got, gosh, like 8 or 10 different awards that it's been finalist or
Mhm.
nominated or won. And when
Yeah.
you started circulating the book out there, what was some of the feedback that you had gotten from the community that you just described?
I've gotten a lot of really tremendous feedback, partly because I think I was not afraid to be
Mm.
vulnerable and talk about some of the things. But I also heard from a lot of people who said like they have invisible disabilities or maybe not the same disability, but it was the first time they felt seen and
Mm.
heard. So that was huge.
I guess you'd been diagnosed, you were in the middle of reconciling what was going on, the changes that were happening with your body. And when it became less and less available to you to use parts of your body, what places did you go in your mindset to be able to adopt the attitude basically that led you to this book and not feel defeated? I would guess there were days when you did, but how did you bring yourself out of?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there still are days.
What is it you go to? What place do you go in your mindset to bring you through those moments and those days?
I think a lot of it is trying to remember, and this feels weird to say this because we're kind of back in this headspace with the current administration. But I think to like all the people that went before me and who fought for different things and how different my life would be had I not been born in the era of the Americans with Disabilities Act. But I feel like currently we're going back to having to fight for a lot of these things once again. And I'm very appreciative of that for sure.
Was there anyone in particular who inspired you? Maybe you read a book of theirs or saw talks of theirs.
I was in the middle of writing this when Julie Human's book came out. Being human, that was a big point for me. But there have been other books like Rebecca Todd's Sitting Pretty, another book that I really enjoyed and kind of hope my writing would live up to.
I definitely understand that. Have you gotten some correspondence from people who are maybe a decade or more behind you and they're working through a diagnosis similar to yours? And what's been the feedback from the book you've gotten? What are some of the stories you've gotten from those folks?
I've gotten feedback from a few people who also have Friedrich's ataxia or SA. And it's interesting because SA is different in every person who has it. As I said before, most people have heart issues or some complications with their heart that I've never had. Some people don't present until they're in their 60s. Some people present as early
Wow.
as 5. So there's a wide range of things. So I've heard from people who are surprised, like about how different symptoms happened to me in a different progression than they happened with them and things like that. But again, they say that it really did connect to them or resonate with them in such a way that they understood what was going on and what I was talking about.
Most importantly, like you said, it helped them to feel seen and understood. Someone out there
Yes.
has gone
Yeah.
through, if not the same thing that they are experiencing, even though the diagnosis was the same. It doesn't sound like it goes the same for everyone. And so they at least knew that someone understood, even though you might not have gone through the exact same thing they were, you could at least relate. And I'm sure that was comforting. Have you gotten contacted by any larger groups to speak or advocate or be involved in the work that you're doing to kind of bring it to different audiences?
I haven't yet. I just got back from Vegas. I was at the National Ataxia Foundation conference where I did film my book and talk to a few people. And they've been coming up to help me promote it. The same with the Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance, or FARA. They're in Philadelphia and they've done the same thing. They've brought me some of my book, their events, and they do their best to promote it.
That's great.
But that's definitely something I would like to get a little more involved in. Obviously, with my speech, public speaking makes me a little nervous. But I think I have to kind of get over myself and just do it.
Yeah, because you'll likely help a lot of people if you do. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
so the title of your book is My Unexpected Life. If you look at your life, 51 years so far and going, what's the most unexpected thing?
I sort of take unexpected in two different ways. It's unexpected because it was something I never thought would happen, but it's also unexpected because society has this low expectations of people with disabilities. But the most unexpected thing, which I talk about in the book, to me is my relationship or friendship with Dave Matthews and how he helped me get my first van.
That is unexpected. I did not see that left turn just now. You
Yeah.
want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So even though I kind of changed my major and I went away from being a radio personality, I was still involved in the music industry because I booked the bands that came to campus. And through them, I interned with somebody in Minneapolis who then was able to give me backstage passes to meet Dave. And I met him the first time and was like, cool, I met Dave Matthews. That's awesome. 6 months later, I saw him again and he remembered me. So that was where the friendship started.
That's great.
Really. I had asked him, not intending at all to ask him to buy me the van. I was asking for ideas on raising money for the van. And he was like, oh, we'll take care of it. And I was like, what does that mean? Because to me, I'm like, well, I was in my 20s. I'm just a fangirl. Like, what are you gonna do for me? Are you just saying this to like placate me and move on? But it took a couple of years, but he
Mm,
was serious about doing something.
that is super cool. That was unexpected
Yeah.
in this conversation for sure, because you are wanting to help people who have FA and you want them to understand some of the things you've gone through. But in the broader sense, you are an advocate for people with disabilities. If the people
Mhm.
listening to this right now, they may have an intimate understanding some of the things you've been through, but they might not, and they might have a relative who does. I think it would be a good thing for you to just let me know, let the audience know, what are some things that people who don't have a disability, they don't have to think about that every day. They don't have to plan for those things every day. What should we be thinking about? What message do you have for some of us who don't have to think about this every day?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that disability, something that anyone can fall into the group at any point in time. And you're probably going to, whether it's from age, it doesn't have to be from a disease or an accident or anything. You can just age and
Mm,
become disabled. So I think it's important to recognize that it's going to affect you at some point. The only marginalized group anyone can go into. It doesn't matter what color you are, what ethnicity, none of that. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I think it's important to educate yourself, but keep reading things that are first person narratives and not somebody writing about somebody else's life. Keep it involved in the first person narrative. Educate yourself and follow disabled people on social media to learn about the things there. Another book I'm going to recommend, well, two other books. Activity U just wrote the Anti-Ableist Manifesto. It's an excellent book. And then Emily Ladau wrote
mm.
Demystifying Disability. Those are two great books.
Those sound great. I love the first title. It sort of punches you in the
Yeah.
face a little bit, that first title.
Yes.
A little while ago, you said
And
that the bar is set really low for people with disabilities. And it sounds
oh
like
yeah.
that bar is kind of set by society collectively. What do you think society is trying to accomplish by setting that bar low? Or is it just a default thing? It could be unconscious, but it still has an effect, right?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to fear. Having somebody with a disability maybe reminds them of their own mortality. That might be part of it. A lot of it, I think it's related to the oppression of almost any other group. It's very much the same. I mean, for a long time, that's the way that we were socialized to believe that people with disabilities belong in institutions or
Mm.
they aren't able to work, they don't want to work, they're not intelligent, all those kinds of different things, unable to participate fully in society, all those things come from like how we're socialized.
So it's kind of the accumulation of all of those stereotypes came together and the
Yeah,
bar came lower and lower so people didn't really have to think too much about it. That brings me back to being kind of fascinated about what you said even before that. How did you phrase it? You said it was the medical versus the social.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What did you call
Yeah.
that?
The medical model and the social model.
The medical
Yeah.
model. Yes. Yeah. It reminded me of what you said even before that with the medical model and the social model, because the medical model
Yeah.
wants to fix you. They said there's something wrong with you. You were born in such a time in the world, or at least in this country, when the social model said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. Be proud of what you have going on. You have a disability, but that doesn't mean you're not able to do anything, which a couple of decades ago would not have been the social model that you would have come into. Is that accurate?
It was around, I think, at that point, but it's definitely grown a lot more in the last 20 years.
Yeah. And you're a part of that now.
I hope so.
I've got your website up. It's jennifergasner.com, and it's got your book right on the front page. Is that the best way to connect with you and what you've got coming up, your blog posts, and to get a copy of your book?
You can go there, definitely. The book's on Amazon, or you can order it from basically anywhere you order your books. And you can find me on Instagram at Jenny G. Writer and Facebook on Jennifer Gasner Author and LinkedIn.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good. We'll have those in the show notes. Wherever they listen to their podcast, they can just click right on it and get to you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important to leave with the folks listening?
I just really want to tell people or show people that people with disabilities have value and we're worthy no matter what you've been taught or told. It's possible to shift your perspective, and I did 10 years after my diagnosis, but I did. So it's possible.
Wow, that's a really powerful and a really beautiful way to end things, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here today and giving us this insight and talking about your book.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today. If something in this episode stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Screenshot it and tag me, or DM me on the socials, send smoke signals, whatever works. I want to know what you're plotting. This show isn't just about listening. It's about building something real together. So I hope to hear from you soon, and I'll be right here next week when you're ready to keep the rebellion going.